You're listening to What It's Like with Luce, a podcast highlighting ordinary people doing extraordinary things. I'm your host, Lucy Norris, and on today's episode, I'm chatting with a creative strategist and co-founder of Block Party and Bare Knuckle. Growing up in a small town in the Netherlands, this week's guest has always been a creative. Honing his skills on Photoshop, he first dipped his toes into entrepreneurship by making promotional posters for his friends' parties at school. Since then, he has gained experience in multiple industries, including music and the world of sport. Chatting to me about the value of personal branding, the importance of being adaptable, and how he's navigated his life so far, here's what it's like to be Funds Jacobs. Welcome, Funds. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me today. I want to start at the very beginning, taking it all the way back to when you were growing up, thinking about prospective career choices for yourself, and what those initial interests were when you pictured your life in a few years.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm very flattered that you want to hear me talk, so very happy to hear that. Going all the way back, I'm born and raised in a small town in the Netherlands, like 60,000 people live here or something. I don't know where it came from. Like I think my first passion in life in general was music and sports, but especially music. It came into my life. Then I started playing video games when I was young, started learning English that way actually. Then I discovered Photoshop. And back then, I'm talking, I don't know, like 2004 or something. You had to learn how to Photoshop. Like there was no YouTube, so you had to learn how to Photoshop through forums where all these people explained these designs and how they created that, and we used that as a sort of tutorials to build different things. And then I started selling posters. Like I don't know, I kind of had a network to a high school and knew a bunch of people who were throwing parties, and they needed posters to promote their events. So started together with a friend of mine, started selling posters. It was very small, very stupid, but it was a lot of fun, definitely looking back at that. So started out that, so we learned ourselves how to Photoshop, sold those posters to people who were throwing events, and from that's where it started. Then I rolled into that world a little bit. I started DJing myself. Well, first I started throwing parties, then started DJing, threw bigger parties, did festivals, and then I thought, wow, this is, I love what I'm doing. So what can I, then high school came to an end and I had to make a decision. First, I made a decision to go to a study called International Business and Management. And that what attracted me there was purely the international parts and different cultures, business cultures. Hated it. I left after 5 months or 6 months. It was all about finance, and that's the one thing I truly hate, with all the respect, is finance. It's not my strong suit. And so I left there, and then I thought, well, I'm doing all these parties. I'm organizing festivals for 30,000 people. Like, I was 17, 18 years old, and I thought, I want to do this. So then I found a school that offered that. It was called Leisure Management, which is of course a very strange name. And I got a lot of heat from that from my parents. When I said I'm going to study leisure management, they were like, what? But yeah, like that was all about, anything you can do in your free time. So from roller coaster parks to business congresses to festivals to parties to cinemas, like all, the entertainment space. So I went there. That's how I, for the first time, knew that I had some sort of creativity in me. When you go to university, you get these labels. It's easier. And at first I thought that I was just, running around. And I got intrigued by that. And then the real big switch came when I had to do an internship. And I've always been very intrigued by America and American culture, probably because I played baseball since I was 12. And I thought the internship is the possibility to go to the US and just work and experience the culture over there. So I went to my university. I said, listen, I want to go to the US, and I don't care what I have to do over there, like what kind of company I'll end up in. Like I really don't mind. And then I had an interview. They said, yeah, we have a record label in LA. So I was like, oh
Oh,
wow.
nice. That
Yeah.
must have been
So
fun.
yeah, and then the fun thing about that was that I went back home on the train and I was thinking, I can remember until this day, like, wow, I totally forgot that there was a whole industry when it comes to music. Like I
Mhm.
was so into music and I was, working with it all day and having fun and just, with all the respect, fucking around and uh, that, yeah, there is an actual industry in this. So I kind of forgot about that. But when they said that opportunity was there, I then realized like, wow, this is definitely a world I want to explore and possibly start my career in. So I did a Skype interview for the first time ever. It was 2010, so it's definitely not as normal as it is now.
Yeah.
And I got the job, and then immediately the first, my first taste of American business culture was okay. Well, just let me know the date you're here, and we'll see you then. And don't call me. Bye. I was like, huh? Well, he literally said, "Ask my wife, not me, if you have questions." I was like, okay. Fine. But that was the first test. Like, and he later told me that like he does that with everybody, and sometimes kids just don't come because it's too hard. Like, you have to get a visa, a sponsorship, and all this stuff, and I had to figure it out on my own. And like he said, it was his first test, so a lot of some kids never showed up.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, that was the start.
That's crazy. You were so busy in school. I always love to hear these stories because, when you think back to how young you were and how much, I suppose, entrepreneurial spirit you had in you back then without maybe even knowing it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, tell me what it was like working in the music industry in LA, because I'm sure it was pretty crazy when you first got there.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I'm a big fan of the American. I don't think if it's an American mindset, but um, our how do you say that? Our subject around my whole internship was just 3 words, and it's make it happen. That
Oh,
was, and I know that's a very, how do you say that? It's a very it's a big buzzword right now, and people throw it around very easily. But the that's how I did my internship. Is literally it was all about that. So at first, for example, the first 3 months, I didn't do anything,
yeah.
like literally nothing. He said you can only do one thing, and that's answer the phone. But that's where it started because he said his name is Larry Robertson, by the way, and he's forever. I call him my American dad. Still have great contact, and he's been yeah, like he changed my life for the better, and that's all because of these little attitude and like mindset things that he implemented, just because of how he is and how he thinks, what people need in their life to succeed. And like I said, it all started with, okay, this is the office, here's your chair. First of all, start listening to people. So that's the only thing I did. I just listened to people when they picked up the phone and overheard their conversations, and I learned a lot that way. And then he said, I want you to answer the phone. But there were other interns as well. So he said, you have to beat each other. Like, I want you to answer the phone as quick as you can.
Oh my
Um,
God.
yeah. And I tried to do that, for example, when I worked at Student Entertainment Group and we had our own interns. I tried to implement that in our company, and it just didn't work. Like it's literally just a mindset thing of, I don't know why they didn't want to. Everybody was afraid of the phone and blah blah. I was just I put my head down. I was listening to everybody, and as soon as the phone rang, I just grabbed it. And the funny part about that is, then you're like, oh shit, there's somebody on the line because you
Yeah.
forget about the part. And then and he said, um, like, hi, this is Avatar Records. You're speaking to Funds Jacobs. How can I help you? And then yeah, had all these questions that, of course, I have never had answers to. But that's how it slowly started. So that was my first gig, and then the second thing was I had to do the dishes every 5 days or so.
Oh, fun.
So the kitchen piled up, and then it's like, hey, Funds, can you do the dishes, by the way, before you leave? Like, okay. Um, but and it started to frustrate me a little bit in the beginning because I thought, what am I learning? Why am I here? I traveled all the way to the other side of the world, and I'm just doing dishes and picking up a phone. Like, And eventually there came an opportunity where there was a big project that was happening very fast, and I took a lot of initiative there around like social media was very starting, of course, and I'm very handy and savvy with that stuff. So I did a lot of things. I did Photoshop. I did a bunch of things, and every time my boss Larry asked me to do something, I said, oh, "Yeah, I did that already." And from that moment on, from that project on, like the last 3 to 4 months, he brought me everywhere, and he really gave me an insight into that world and how that looked. And what that changed for me was that I was already so close. You can feel it, like, being in LA and running around the industry. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a very small record label, so we weren't doing major things, but just being in that area and being around some people, like, I was very close to the highest level possible when it comes to entertainment. And then I thought, this is it, man. This is what I want to do. Like, I don't care about anything else anymore. Like, I want to grow, and I want to do this for the rest of my life. And that's why I said, like, Larry and his wife Lynette, like, they changed me so much. Like, before that, I was, like I said, I was just fucking around, just throwing parties, and it was doing well, but never thought of it too seriously until I did that internship, and that's when it really started for me.
Yeah, and it's so amazing, as you demonstrated there, how important staying power is, because I feel like a lot of people might have just quit in your situation, but
Yeah.
obviously it paid off. And then, it's that thing of working your way up, but that's what pays off in the end, because people see that you're actually dedicated. And so I know you've done a lot of kind of entrepreneurial things. So in terms of artist management and the music industry, did you kind of stay in that whilst working on projects like Block Party and Bare Knuckle and things like that? Or was there a moment where you decided to leave that behind to focus on these other projects?
There was definitely a switch. I from LA, I went back to Amsterdam. I got myself an internship at Steel Entertainment Group, and I developed very quickly, and I stayed with them for four and a half years. And there was a moment. It was a combination of two things. One, we worked in EDM. So we were, part of that whole Afrojack and Martin Garrix boom eventually, and the when it exploded, things changed. Like, there was no more room for creativity, in my opinion. It was all about just throw stuff online and see what sticks when it comes to music. And like, our DJs had to release a record every 4 weeks, and that's so different from, look at artists like, I don't know, like Jay-Z or Beyonce or whoever, who take years to develop an album and create a story and create campaigns around that. And it's a whole story and campaign. But at that point in EDM, there was no room for that stuff. It was just literally, we release a record, we just buy a stock video from somewhere for a few $100 that has nothing to do with the song. We just throw it online. We work with Spinning Records a lot back then. They had a huge YouTube channel. Just throw it online, see what happens. If they saw a little traction, then they would invest a little more. But I don't know, and that really hurt my love for beautiful products and creativity and branding and all that stuff. So I was kind of getting sick of it. Then, I received an opportunity to work with, he was at that point the CEO of Sony Music England. And he asked me if I didn't want to start my own management firm, but then more in other music, so not EDM. So that's why I quit my job back then. Eventually that fell through, unfortunately. And kind of hit rock bottom for a couple of weeks, and then I thought, okay, I need to get back on my feet. That's when I switched to. I just grabbed a job, so I literally went from music and entertainment to 6 months of IT recruitment, running around in a suit at the World Trade Center 5 days a week,
Wow.
which was a very new environment for me. But yeah, until this day, I have two friends from that period that will be friends for life. So. That was fun, but it was also pretty clear that wasn't my life. That wasn't for me. And then I started talking with my friend Gregory Van der Waal, who is a professional soccer player, and he had his own challenges. And eventually we said, we should just team up. I mean, before that we were friends for years already, but then we decided, okay, we need to team up and start, doing stuff together. And that's how I rolled into these other industries as well.
Yeah, that's quite the story. I feel like you've had, such a journey in terms of switching through different things. But in terms of just, I suppose, yourself and from a personal perspective, what was it like when you do hit those moments where you need to make kind of a drastic change, or you feel in yourself that something isn't working for you anymore? I suppose what I'm getting at is navigating finding the right path for you when you have all these different opportunities in different industries, but how do you know when something fits?
Good question. The one thing I said to myself from the start was, as soon as I'm not learning anymore, I'm not developing myself anymore, then I should make a switch, make a change. And that was the same in that industry. Um, it became too much of the same. I wasn't growing personally, so that's why I thought, okay, I'm open to a new opportunity, and that presented itself back then. um, and I don't know, I'm very about I do a lot on gut feeling, which sometimes gets me in trouble as well. But in the end, it's always lessons learned, I guess, because also, with that opportunity to start my own business, which then a couple months later actually fell through. Like I was just purely in excitement, and I was ready to go. And I made rookie mistakes. I don't know if that's a Dutch saying, but we say don't throw your old shoes away before you have new ones. And that's what I did. But then again, it was also a blessing in disguise, because that forced me into new things, and that's when other opportunities presented themselves. And um, I don't know. I've learned that um, when shit hits the fan, and when you, I don't know, get fired, or you have to quit your business or whatever, it's also when one door closes, others open. And it happened to me now 2 times already. And so I can yeah. But in terms of deciding where I want to go, I don't think it's mm, I think it's also like I never made a mistake. Oh, I want to go into technology, or I want to go into basketball, I want to go into this. It just happened for some reason. I'm very open to new things. And you meet a lot of people, and things just present themselves. And then it's, of course, it's up to you to make a decision, like, okay, this is for me. And I just work from passion. So if it fits who I am and what I like, then I'm up for it. And that's yeah, I think that's maybe one of the reasons that I operate in so many different industries that yeah. And I learned a lot from that, from looking into all these different industries. So that's very nice too.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure you have such a wealth of experience. And I like how you say, you operate off of passion, because I feel like that's also the best way to be successful as well, as to do what you love. And so you mentioned that, with your friend Gregory, you decided that you were going to tackle new projects together, which I believe the first one was Block Party. So for anyone that has never heard of it or doesn't know what we're talking about, can you just give in a nutshell what that is and how the idea came about?
Yeah, so like I said, Gregory has been a professional soccer player for I don't know how long. He played at Ajax Amsterdam, then went to Paris Saint-Germain, Paris, for 4 years, and eventually went from Fenerbahce, Cagliari, and Toronto in the MLS. And when we started talking about doing business together, he was playing in Fenerbahce in Istanbul at that point. And he had his own challenges. Like, I was looking for a new challenge in general. And I started talking to him about that. And then he said, well, he also had two challenges on his own. And that was, one, he knew that he needed to do way more with his capital that he was earning while he was playing. And secondly, he had to do way more with his own brand and name while it was still relevant during his career. And that's where we kind of started. And then, but we literally said, okay, what should we do?
Yeah.
Where should we start? But while brainstorming, eventually Gregory had done some investments, some small angel investments, and one big one in Baller. I don't know if you know that brand, and 433, which is the biggest sports platform on Instagram.
Mhm.
And we both like technology a lot, and futuristic stuff, and just the development of technology in general. applications, platforms, you name it. So he already did those small investments, and he liked that a lot, doing that. And of course, it's a way to build something for the future. If you build a portfolio of startups that you invest in, and they grow and hopefully get sold one day for a lot of money, then of course you have something. To you make a lot of make a lot of money in the end.
Yeah.
So then we said, okay, let's see if we can build a professional portfolio. So then when we decided to do that, I just went into that market here in Amsterdam. I don't know, I started talking to people. I started talking about our new plans, but also speaking out loud. I think that's a very important thing, is that I'm a very honest person. So I just told everyone, listen, I don't know this industry. I have no idea on how startups work. I know what I know, but can please help me.
Yeah.
Because I was talking to a lot of investors, investment funds, and I was just honest, like, listen, we have something here. We have a big brand in the form of Gregory. I have my knowledge coming from entertainment and building brands and building personal brands. And now we want to help startups, by investing in them and helping them on that front. And that's kind of how that started. And in the end, we did about 7 investments, I think, altogether. And we launched Block Party for that. In the beginning, we said, if we can do it for Gregory, we can do it for other people as well. But then we also noticed that the soccer industry and players are very, how do you say it, very safe when it comes to that. And it's kind of scary for them, for a lot of them, to put so much money into companies. And so we said, that's fine, we'll just do our own thing. And that's what we did. And very happy with the result until now.
Yeah, for sure. And so, I mean, you'd built this thing, it was going well for you. Talk me through the decision to then start another new venture in Bare Knuckle, and why did you feel the need to I suppose start up something new when you already had something going?
Yeah, an investment fund, especially around one person, which was Gregory in this case, you have limited funds. Of course, you have limited capital that you can invest. And we built that brand, but eventually it was just ongoing. We did a couple of investments, but there's a limit to that as well. And then, the day-to-day, it's not a day-to-day job managing these investments, because, they come to you for advice, they come to you for help, but it's not that, every day, all day, I'm working on these companies. That's not the role that you have as an investor. So there was room, and we already thought, like, in the startup industry, there wasn't a lot of people that were talking about branding and building a brand instead of building a technology startup. So we had our thoughts, like, okay, maybe we should launch an agency that will focus on branding startups and helping them in this industry. And that moment, I never forget. It was the New Year's Eve 2017. We were in Italy, and we shook hands. Like, okay, we're going to do this. And then a week later, Gregory received a call. So first week of 2018, from TFC Toronto, the team there, if he wanted to come play there. And then he called me. He was like, "Oh, okay. Well, if you go, I'll go." So he was like, "Okay, fuck it, let's go." So that's what we did. So we went there, and then we paused all our plans and just looked at a new industry and a new city, and just kind of stayed back and just observed. And that's when the idea for Bare Knuckle came about, because sports and building personal brands, it, in my opinion, still doesn't happen the right way and I'm not talking about Cristiano Ronaldo and LeBron James and the biggest athletes on the planet, but especially the level below that, that, there's no long-term vision, there's no creative direction, there's just a lot of stuff missing when it comes to athletes, trying to build their business and build their brand. And what we saw that, and we wanted to show with Gregory as an example of how that could look, that received a lot of great feedback. And so we launched Bare Knuckle to focus on, we basically said to athletes, let us be your creative director on your team. So, we're not going to be a manager, we're not going to be an agent, but for example, if there's a campaign, a brand that wants to do a campaign for you, with you, let us be the creative director on your side, and make sure that your brand gets protected and you get the most out of it, because that doesn't happen very often. So that's kind of why we wanted to start that. And we were in the right place at that time. We got involved in basketball. We saw the same thing there. So that's how that all came about a little bit.
And in terms of that, just something you mentioned there made me think, when you first launched Bare Knuckle and you kind of, I suppose, approached athletes with your ideas, how did it go down with management and with their agents? Did you ever find any conflict of interest in that, or did they kind of understand the difference between what you were trying to do and what their role was in terms of managing their athletes?
Good question, because there was definitely some pushback here and there. There were agents that didn't understand it, and they were afraid that we would get too close to the athletes. And it's a very, yeah, sports is a very different industry. It's very strange. There's a lot of hustle going on. There's a lot of, there's no rules. And when it comes to sports, it's a very strange industry when it comes to that. So yeah, there was definitely agents that were like, okay, I don't want to, no, this is not for me, because they were afraid of their own position or whatsoever. Although we just said to them, like, we want to be an addition to whatever you do. And the problem is that a lot of agents, they say they do branding, they say they will build your brand, but in the end of the day, they don't. Or they just think branding is about getting sponsor deals. And that's also one of the hard things that we figured out, is that the word branding is just very misused in general, but also especially in sports. So, a lot of players just think of websites and logos, but especially sponsor deals. And that's not what we wanted to do. So that definitely made our lives a lot harder.
Yeah, I can imagine. It just made me think when you were talking about that there. And so then I suppose you're kind of, back to a position where you've established a new business, it's working, it's becoming successful. Where do you go from there?
Well, what we started, we wanted to start small, because we thought, to build up a trust with an athlete to hand over everything to us, it's going to be very hard. So what we did is we did small projects with a lot of different players. From, for example, Jamal Murray, we went on his basketball camp, and we did, all photography and videography and design around that, just little projects trying to, to show them the difference in quality that we were talking about, instead of, with all the respect, bringing on a homie with a camera and he just shoots a video, because that's how it normally goes. And that's how we did it in the beginning, and trying to, again, get into their camps and on their side, and hopefully build from there. But in the end, after like almost 2 years, we decided, we never found a player that was willing to build so long term on their brand, which means step one is investing in your own content and your own brand. And we never jumped that hurdle. I still believe it's the right way to do it, the vision that we had for that. But I don't know, maybe it's just not the time, or maybe it will happen in the future. But like I said, in within 2 years, we never found an athlete that we could really, build with the way we see how you should build a personal brand, especially as an athlete. And that also, not forced, but that made us realize, like, is this what we want then? And we started doing some other stuff for companies, but that wasn't really what I wanted with this company. So at the end of the day, we decided, you know what, Corona hit, the visas we were supposed to have for the US got canceled and all that stuff. So we decided, maybe it's a good time to let this go and start looking at new opportunities.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear that, because I feel like, as you said a little while back, branding and personal branding and things like that, it's such a buzzword at the moment. It seems to be all anyone online can talk about, and I can imagine it's such a broad term, and people never really understand fully what goes into that. So it's interesting to hear that people maybe still weren't in the position where they understood the value of personal branding yet. Is that kind of what you feel happened?
Yeah, because the problem always is that there, in my opinion, how you build a personal brand, it's in 3 major steps. And step one is you got to build your own content and your own strategy when it comes to that. And you need to spend money on that. You need videographers, you need people like us to help you build with that and build that narrative around you, because you're way more than an athlete. So how can we find, for example, if you're an athlete and you love coffee, then how can we start creating content around coffee and your love for coffee? to show other people that you truly love coffee. Then the second step, which then it becomes interesting for them, because then we're talking sponsorships, because now all of a sudden, because you invested in your brand in the first place and you invested in content around coffee, now a coffee place will say, hey, that's interesting, he's a basketball player or a soccer player, but he's genuine loving coffee. So it's an easy one too. You start with sponsorship in that corner, it opens up a whole new market for sponsor deals possibilities. And then the third step, which to me is the most interesting, but then we talk like years, is, if the whole world knows that you're a coffee guy, next to you're a basketball player, you're a coffee guy, and you truly understand your coffee, then if 4 years from now you launch your own coffee shop or your own coffee brand, people are going to love it. And that's the problem is, they all want to start at step 3 or step 2,
Yeah.
and they forget about step 1. And because step 1 comes with money and investments, that was the biggest hurdle. And especially like you said, there are so many people talking about personal branding, and the website guys talk about personal branding, the photographers talk about personal branding, and they can get so much stuff for free because they're athletes. They think, why? Like, they don't see it, and it's not direct return on investment when it comes to money. So that's why it was very hard to find something that actually believed in that.
There is a few things that I just want to pick your brain back, because I feel like you've had such a diverse experience. I'd be interested to know what your personal, I don't want to use the word experience again, but that's the only word that's coming to my head, kind of with adaptation is, and how you found yourself adapting to all of these new industries, new environments, new changes that you had in your life, and whether that was something you found easy or something that you kind of had to learn as you went.
It came very natural to me. There's actual words for people like me. A multi something. Shit, I forgot. There was a TEDx talk about this topic, because it's sometimes it's very hard, because I also like a lot of different things. Like I always said, like I wish I had 5 lives, because I would love to have a career in the army, for example. I would love to have a career in, I don't know, I would love to just move to Bali and open up a coffee store, and all these little things that because I'm just a very curious and very enthusiastic person in general. So sometimes that's also hard.
Yeah.
But I think in the end of the day, it's all about, and again, I'm using a buzzword, and it's very annoying, but it's all about your mindset and your attitude towards new things. I mean, if you're willing to learn, like I love learning. Learning is probably a top priority for me in general, and just being open to new cultures, to new things. And I don't know, I'm just very used to, like I've lived in, I don't know how many cities, probably like 7 or something. That's it.
Wow.
And you can make me happy just sending me off to a new city somewhere on my own. And I love flying alone and just discovering all these new things. It's one of the challenges I have right now, being in a lockdown for almost a year. It's just the lack of new is honestly starting to bother. And I'm not complaining at all, because there's a lot more people that have serious stuff. But coming back to what you said is, I don't know, it's just being open, and know that this is not your world yet. Like I just said about the startup industry, like I talk to people, there's a lot of people, like fake it till you make it is a big thing, I think, in the age
Yeah.
of social media, and I'm very against that, because honesty always wins in the end, always. Like in the end, I struck a partnership with an investment firm that I started my conversations with, like, listen, I don't know this world. I have no idea how these startups come about, and how that works, and how investments work, and what I should pay attention to, and blah blah blah. In the end of the day, they knew that I had something to add. They knew they had something to add, and together we did a lot of cool stuff. So I could have come there saying that I'm an expert in startups and in startup investing and all that stuff, and they probably laughed at me, but or figured it out eventually. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But being that open and humble to say, I have no idea what this is, but I love it, because that's what I said. Like, listen, I don't know how this works, but I'm loving it, so I want to know. And I think you can implement that in any industry. So that's why I said it all comes down to your own attitude and mindset when it comes to switching industries. Because if it's the basic foundation that will get you through it, I think.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And it's such a key thing, and such a skill to be able to know as well when to ask for help. I feel like that's something that everyone's so afraid to do because they think it's going to make them look some kind of way, exactly as you said with the fake it till
Yeah,
you make it thing. And so I suppose leading from that, now I'm interested to hear your take on success and what you deem to be successful, or whether you feel like you'll ever be able to maybe reach that if you do have so many different interests and so many things you want to do you ever feel like you can I don't know if you can ever sit down, if anyone can, and say I am successful now, whether it's the journey or whatever, but what do you think about success and how you measure it in your life?
I think it's a very scary and horrible word.
Yeah.
uh, a lot of people, again, looking back at, social media and what is success. I mean, I think I definitely, like, the last year I started appreciating just enjoying life a lot more. For example, the weather just changed from, freezing here. I don't know where where are you situated again?
I'm in Dublin in Ireland, so
Yeah. So
constant winter.
exactly. So we had like minus 15 here like a week ago, and now it's plus 19. So, just having that sun right now, just sitting outside, like, oh man, this is so good.
Yeah, I'm so jealous.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, like, yeah, what is success? Like, how I see that for myself is, I just want to build great stuff, and that is a passion, and that comes back to that multi-potential, like, word is like, I don't really mind in what area or what industry. I mean, I have a big passion for entertainment in general when it comes to sports, music, gaming, all that stuff, and but I don't know. I just get a kick out of creating beautiful things, and especially for other people. Like, the more people can enjoy something, the happier I get, and and that does come, and that's funny because, I always give the example of, I don't know if you remember the Swedish House Mafia.
Yeah.
They did a farewell tour, and when they did New York City, they colored the Empire State Building in the colors of Sweden.
Oh.
So, like, exactly, there's no money, they didn't get paid to do that, but the fact that somebody did that, like, that shit I want to do. I don't know how the person did that.
Yeah, now I'm thinking about the
uh,
logistics of that.
yeah, but it turned yellow, blue, yellow, and I'm like, that's why I get a kick out of, like, that millions of people will see that, and it's like, I did that. That's pretty dope. Like, I don't need anybody to know that I did, but just the fact that so many people can enjoy something beautiful, is what keeps me going, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a great definition of success. And I feel like you've already done that with a lot of your work. And so, not to make, I feel like this, I want to ask this question because I'm curious to know, but I also know how difficult it is to answer because of the circumstances in the world and all that kind of thing. But do you know what is going to be next for you, or what you kind of see the next year, the next few months looking like?
Mm, like I said in the beginning, I eventually we quit the business, and I started rethinking about what I really want to do. Eventually, I started freelancing a couple months ago, and I'm literally just taking it day by day. To be honest, I think that's the best approach for somebody in my position right now and the state of the world that we're in.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely want to move back to, because I'm in my hometown again, but I definitely want to move back to North America, being that either Toronto where I lived or LA again. But that, time will tell. I'm not stressing myself out like, oh, I need to go back there tomorrow, because that will only screw in my own mind. And I'm living day by day. I'm picking up stuff. I'm doing a lot of freelance work right now, which is great. It's been great. That's also what I mean. Like, when one thing closes, for example, Bare Knuckle, the company that we had that we shut down, other things pop up, and now I'm doing things that I've never thought I would do. And I'm a very how do you say that? Spontaneous person, as you
Hmm.
might have recognized that.
Yeah,
When there's,
picked it up.
I just jump on it if it feels right. So that's and until then, I just hustle around. I know it's a horrible word, but and see and do cool things, and we'll see what comes from there.
Yeah, but I think that's also an exciting time as well because, there's so many new opportunities that could be coming your way. And that spontaneity is such a good quality to have, I feel, because then I feel like people that are naturally spontaneous don't tend to have so many limiting factors or things like that when they're going into things? You're more maybe risk orientated. Would that be
Yep.
right in saying?
Yeah, I'm very positive in general. So that, again, that sometimes gets me in trouble as well. Yeah, I'm, and I always told, like, also when I moved to Toronto and then moved to LA, like, people are like, whoa, you just moved to the other side of the world. And I told them, like, what can happen? If things go wrong, I just go back to my parents and figure it out from there again. And that's literally what happened. I'm back with my dad for now, for a sec. And it's, I'm very humble and thankful for the fact that that I do have that. But that's indeed the worst thing can happen, and I'm still pretty happy right now. So yeah, I'm always tend to look at the positive instead of the negative in anything.
Yeah, well, that's a really good way to be. And so I just have one more question for you, and then I'm gonna let you go. Um, if I put your 10-year-old self in front of you today, having been through the countless things you've been through, all the different industries, different businesses, and also then just from a personal perspective as well, what's the biggest piece of advice you would give that 10-year-old self moving forward?
Do you and keep going. In the moments that didn't go my way, if you just keep faith and just keep trusting yourself, things will work out. And that's what happened numerous times now in my life and my career. But in the end of the day, it will all work itself out, because if you're deep down, you're just an honest and respectful person, and open to people and help and a lot of things, then you're going to be fine in the end of the day. So that's what I would tell myself, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, and it kind of just brings everything back to the core. If you don't back yourself, then who will? And you don't trust yourself, no one will. So, yeah, it's definitely worked out really well for you so far. So, I just want to say thank you so much for letting me pick your brain. It's been so interesting getting to know your story, and I appreciate your time.
Well, the pleasure was mine. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you so much for listening, and as always, please rate, share, and leave a comment if you like what you hear. And don't forget to follow @WhatIt'sLikePod on Instagram and Facebook. To find out more about Funds and his work to date, visit the links provided in the show notes. I'll be back on Thursday with more inspiring stories, but for now, this has been What It's Like with Luce.